volunteers, folks. This is not an event that's put on by paid individuals. This is all volunteer, myself, including the executive committee and all those fine people back there. I'd like to, if you will, allow me to introduce you to our executive board. Ms. Tracy Howard, who is our vice chair. Rebecca Foster, our secretary.
You're good.
Sue Ann York, who is our vice secretary. Ever Bowen is our parliamentarian. And Virginia Houston, who's our treasurer. Linda Bottoms, our vice treasurer. Karen Shanks, our publicity chair. And then we have Miss Linda Clark, who is head of the Republican Women's Club. Are you here, Miss Linda? I did ask her to come up here. If any of you are interested in joining, they're always looking for more members and volunteers, but I'd like for her to go over just for a few events as well as some other upcoming things.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. What a great evening. I can't believe. First, I'd like to introduce to you the rest of the executive committee for the Republican Women. I am the president of the organization. Ms. Kelly Tipton. Where's Kelly? Kelly is our vice president. Jessica Burgess is our treasurer. Shannon Stout is our secretary. And Rebecca Foster, Rebecca Foster is our immediate past president, and we just couldn't let go of her. She just has to stay with us for another term. So, our next meeting for the Republican Women is Thursday, April 7th at 5 p.m. It will be a business meeting, so you'll get to hear what's going on with all of the Republican Women committees. And we also will have a brief update from our party chair, R.J. Crawford. It will be at TCAB, that is at 910 Miller Avenue at 5 p.m. And our next fundraiser is May 26th and 27th. If you have junk, save it. We want it because we will sell it and we will help fund our scholarship. We just had our first scholarship and it went very well, but we want to fully fund these scholarships. We give out at least 2 a year, so you can help us out. Also, on March 23rd and March 26th, there will be training sessions to staff the as volunteers for the Republican office. This is for men and women. I'm just announcing it. So you men are welcome to sign up for this. Shannon Stout up here has the sign-up sheet for the volunteer training. It's half-hour sessions on those 2 dates. So remember March 23rd, March 26th. Come up and see Shannon before you leave if you'd like to sign up for the training. The headquarters will be open starting April 2nd and run through the month until the May 3rd election. So there will be, it'll be open on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 to 2. So come in and see the volunteers there. Be a volunteer. And we also are looking for a volunteer coordinator. So if you are a very organized, outgoing, friendly people person, you can talk to Tracy, who's over there, after the event is over and indicate your interest in helping us out with staying organized with our volunteers. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Last but not least, and her name's already been mentioned, but Ms. Shannon Stout representing Conservative Americans for Tennessee.
Evening, everybody. Thanks to RJ and the Republican Party for allowing me to get up and speak to y'all a little bit about Conservative Americans for Tennessee. Very excited to see everybody out tonight. It's encouraging to see this kind of turnout. For those of you who aren't familiar with Conservative Americans for Tennessee, it was founded by concerned Cumberland County citizens with the mission of promoting constitutionally conservative ideas and values by disseminating factual information to foster informed citizens. So that's you all. We've got 4 founding members, and they are here tonight. Mary is the half of Mary and John Kottmeyer. She's here. And then we also have Mary, that's the other half of Mary and Buzz Ziegler, and Linda and Craig Clark, and then myself, Shannon Stout, and my husband, Dave Stout. So we have heavily been involved with the Cumberland County Republican Party with supporting our local and state conservative candidates. For the last year, we've been conducting monthly informational and educational forums, and several of you here, a lot of familiar faces. I know you've been attending, and you've enhanced the forums with your comments and your questions that you had. If you haven't had the opportunity to join us for one of the forums, we invite you to come. As I mentioned, we do hold them monthly. We had to cancel the one last Saturday because of the weather, and unfortunately we had Congressman Rose lined up, but he has agreed to come back, so we've got him rescheduled. But the next one that we're going to be holding is April 12th at 2 p.m. at the Druid Hills Library in Fairfield Glade, and that's going to be all of our primary conservative candidates, and they'll be there as a meet and greet. So if you haven't had the opportunity to meet a lot of them up to this point, or you couldn't make the party meeting last month where they did the same thing, we're doing that again before early voting starts on the 13th. And then Saturday, May 14th at 10 a.m. at TCAT, that's when we rescheduled John Rose. So he's coming for coffee and conversation with y'all. There's a lot going on in Washington, so you'll want to take the chance to come and meet and talk with him about what we can do to help support the conservative efforts. I think we all agree that the upcoming elections are really vital, and hopefully you can help us spread the word by telling people about these events, inviting your friends and your neighbors, and let's get the word out and get the red wave going. Thank you, everybody.
All right. So a couple of things I want to highlight since it's such a great group, just to let you know what we've got going on in the next few months. But before I do so, if you're not a sustaining member of the County Republican Party, for $25, I'd ask you to consider doing that. 100% of those proceeds go back to the party and help us put on events such as this. We have some pretty cool stuff going on throughout the rest of this year, and we can't do it without your support. So if you find it in your heart, or if you have $25 that you'd like to part from, we as the Cumberland County Republican Party would be more than happy to help you in that area. Just to give you an update, so last month we had our countywide local candidates forum. Great turnout there as well. There were two individuals that kind of got into the race late for registered deeds. Super excited though to turn that into a Republican seat. We've got Steve Powell and Trey Curley. They're going to have an opportunity next month to share why they're running, and so I hope that you come out next month and listen to what they have to say. I'm going to ask Mr. Bill Luce to come up. He asked to come up and speak real briefly with you all, but wanted to introduce himself to you all. He's running for State Executive Committee for District 15, and Mr. Bill.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the time, RJ. My name is Bill Luce, and I am running as a candidate for the State Executive Committee man for District 15. Now, my counterpart running for the State Executive Committee woman is none other than Linda Clark, which you guys know. Linda and I are not running for the same position. The GOP bylaws for the state of Tennessee state that there's 66 individuals within the senatorial districts within the state. So there's 33 men, 33 women. So we're not running against each other. We're kind of in unison. So I am the immediate past chairman of the Wake County Republican Party. I served for two-year terms until I was term limited out back in March. Because I was term limited, I was kind of stuck in limbo, but I've been regularly attending many Upper Cumberland meetings throughout the last 5 years. I figured that this is my time to give back, and let me go ahead and see if I can help out with the State Executive Committee. I've been with great executive committee members in Wake County. We very successfully brought our county, which is much smaller than Cumberland, we brought our county from having an average of 8 to 12 people attending the meetings to an average of 60 attending each month. So many of you have been to our meetings, you've seen the enthusiasm. We've really gotten ourselves on the map. We've built up the coffers. Just like what RJ said, we tend to try to build those coffers so that we can provide events to get the candidates out with the different meet and greets so that people can actually one-on-one talk with each other and get to know the candidates. So again, my name is Bill Loos, L-O-O-S. I will be on the August 4th ballot, probably way down at the very, very low when everybody Christmas trees it. So, but anyway, I will thank you for your vote in advance, and thank you again, RJ.
So you heard earlier about volunteers. You know, I know this isn't necessarily a presidential election year, but it's a very important year. And I think you see the motto that we've adopted as a party here behind us. I hope you'll join me and the executive committee in getting us across the finish line in every category possible. But we need help. And so if you're interested in volunteering, you can sign up here with Ms. Shannon. You can also sign up with Ms. Tracy. Just if you're interested. But we are having a training on the 23rd of March. So if you want to write this down or put this in your calendar, either at 10:30 or at 1:30. They'll be about 30 minutes long, I'm being told. That's a Wednesday. And then we're also doing another training on March 25th at 10:30. Those 3 trainings are going to help us with those individuals that plan on working in the party headquarters. Is it 26? Sorry. Yes, you're right. So 23rd on Wednesday, the 26th on the Saturday. Okay, have Rebecca keep me straight. Our headquarters will open the 2nd of April, which is a Saturday, and we'll start the 10 to 2 process. So it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays from April 2nd forward. Next month we'll be having, again, register of deeds candidates to be able to speak, as well as some of the judicial candidates that couldn't come. Luckily for them, they're not opposed, so it won't be necessarily as important. In May, the 17th, we have got both Mayor Foster and Mayor Mayberry coming to give updates on city and county. I've kind of all told Alan, so I appreciate you doing that. But again, all these are at 6 p.m. at the complex. Circle June 4th if you can. That's our Reagan Day dinner. We've had a great turnout these last few years. I don't want to give it away, but we may be having a pretty fun, big, large speaker, someone I think a lot of you would like to hear. And as we get closer and I can lock him down, I'll let you guys know. But June 4th at 6 p.m. right here, we'll be doing our Reagan Day dinner. Now last but not least, in July, if you're a golfer, Saturday the 23rd, we're going to be doing our annual golf tournament that's been very successful. The past few years we've sold out on teams, so if you're interested in getting a team sponsorship, please get with me as soon as you can. We'll be doing a fish fry follow-up, and both Senator Bailey and Speaker Sexton will be there speaking at the event. All right. Now for what you all are here for. Okay? We're going to get into the judicial candidate forum. We're going to start with the non-contested races. Some individuals aren't able to come, but there are many that are. And so what we're going to do is allow them to speak for up to 5 minutes. And then after that, we'll go into contested race. And when we get to the contested race, I'll talk more about that. What I learned last month is that some people like to go over, and knowing that this group, there are going to be lawyers and judges that like to hear themselves, like to talk a lot. When that 5 minutes is up, my alarm is going to go off, and it's going to stay that way until they sit down. Okay? I have to work tomorrow. Many of you do too. I do not want to be here till midnight. So, with that being said, I'm going to ask Attorney General Brian Dunaway, come on up.
Start the party. I know RJ was going to make me start the party. So, well, good evening. My name is Brian Dunaway. 8 years ago, the people of this county and the 6 other counties that make up the 13th Judicial District elected me to serve as your District Attorney General. My wife, Leanne, is the first person I asked to support that effort 9 years ago. And thankfully, I asked her again if she would support me in a second term, and she gave that blessing. So I'm here to announce to you that I have the blessing of my wife, who supported me through my first term and now my second, and also throughout the 27 years of our marriage. So I really appreciate her. And the best thing about this is in 2014, I ran 2 competitive races, and I have a little relief to this time. I am unopposed for 2022, and I don't take that for granted. It's very humbling to feel that way. I feel like a bit of a compliment But I do really feel humbled by it, and I'm really thankful for that to the other members of the bar and also the people in our judicial district. What a difference 8 years makes. It's amazing. I've been reminiscing about my campaign in 2014 and thinking with quite a bit of fondness about it. And I remember going throughout our 7 counties and talking to Republican meetings much like this one. But many of those meetings only had 20 people in attendance, like Bill said, 8 to 12 in attendance. And it was kind of worrisome then. But how things have changed in 8 years. You know, the 13th Judicial District in the Upper Cumberland, not too many years ago, was strongly Democrat. Very strong Democrat. And it's exactly the opposite now. There's hardly a person that holds a Democratic office in the 7 counties of our judicial district. It's kind of amazing how the pond has turned over. It's really amazing. And I credit that to people like you who are working hard and in the trenches. I look into the faces of this room and I see a lot of familiar faces that I've come to know over the last 8, 9, 10 years. Many of these faces were here at these events 8 years ago when I first ran. And I'm encouraged to see faces that I did not see 8 years ago and that are engaged in this Cumberland County Party and making it grow and become bigger and making the state and the county much more red. It's amazing what 8 years does. It's amazing. I like to think that, and I'm very proud of the fact that I get to claim that I'm the first Republican District Attorney General in the history of the 13th Judicial District. Some of my fellow judges can claim that same title as to their positions. So it just kind of gives you an idea how the tide has turned, and that's really a great thing. When I ran 8 years ago, there were many issues that were important to me. I'll tell you about a couple of them. I feel strongly that the district attorney should be really focused on maintaining public safety. We live in our communities, our children go to church here, and we should be law and order. And I don't apologize for being of that mindset. I also felt like special focus needed to be paid toward the protection of children and vulnerable adults. And I wanted to do something also about the opioid epidemic that Tennessee was suffering from for the past 10 or 15 or 20 years. Didn't quite know at the time what I would do, but I really had it on my mind to do something about it. So what a difference 8 years makes. So in the last 8 years, I will tell you that we have implemented things in this district to help those issues. VAPIT exists now. VAPIT is an acronym that stands for Vulnerable Adult Protective Investigative Team. It's something that I started during my term. We meet monthly, and it's an investigative team that talks about and reviews every single referral that reports abuse, neglect, or exploitation of elderly or vulnerable adults. I will tell you, before that VAPIT team was created, none of those referrals were reviewed by law enforcement and police on a large scale. And the purpose of that is so that those cases don't fall through the cracks. They're very important. A direct example of the success of that VAPIT is in Putnam County, to our neighbor to the west. We shut down a mental health group home and convicted its director of exploitation of vulnerable adults. And she's in prison today. So those are just, I can't stand people who prey on children and the vulnerable. And so that's just one of the efforts that we go on. So my mind turned toward the opioid epidemic too. And it has so many facets to it, but I'll just mention one. Tennessee really had an over-prescription problem with opioids historically. I'll give you an example. In 2014, in Cumberland County, Tennessee, there were 153.6 opioid prescriptions per 100 people. Think about it. That's 1.5 per person in this county. 6 years later, in 2020, there are 40.6 opioid prescriptions per person in Cumberland County. Now, it's not a complete result of this, but a few years ago, myself and several of my... Is that already going on? You know, RJ did not lie about those lawyers. They like to hear themselves talk. Listen, I will close by telling you that I'm very grateful for the position that you put me in. I'm humbled by it, and it matters who you place in this position. Just think about the news reports that you see with the DAs and the decisions they're making in Portland and Seattle and all those other cities where they don't prosecute the crimes to keep our community safe. Thank you, and God bless you.
we're going to move over to Circuit Court Judge Part 1, and that is Mr. Will Ridley. Again, these are not opposed races, not contested races.
Thank you to the Republican Party for putting this on. I don't have an opponent in the primary, and I'm proud to be the only Republican running for Circuit Court Judge Part 1. However, I am opposed in the general election in August, and I'm running against the last elected Democrat judge in the Upper Cumberland. And so I need your help to make that change. If elected, I will be the first Republican to ever hold Circuit Court Part 1. And it's important to understand Circuit Court Part 1 is not just Cumberland County, it's Putnam, Overton, Pickett, Clay, White, and DeKalb. So if you got cousins or friends or great uncles somewhere, please call them and ask them to vote for me. RJ, I want to first say that I've got my campaign managers here with me tonight, Riley and Madison, my little girls, and my true campaign manager Tiffany, who runs our household and takes care of us. So. A little bit about me. I have a private practice here in Crossville. I represent the city of Crossville, been the city attorney for over 7 years. I'm the city tax attorney, and I've been appointed by both Governor Haslam and Governor Lee to serve as special Deputy Attorney General to prosecute condemnation cases within the city of Crossville. So I have the experience necessary to take office on day one. And all those things are important for a resume, but really what you need to know is that I'm going to be fair and impartial, and I'm going to treat everybody with the respect they deserve when they come to my court. There's an old saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And I truly believe that. As a lawyer, a lot of times we go to court with our clients and we're waiting and waiting, and the case gets continued and continued and continued, and eventually justice is denied. So if elected, I want to move those dockets, move those cases through the court system, and make a more efficient justice system for the Upper Cumberland. RJ asked me to briefly explain the differences between the judges, because there's a lot of judges here talking to you tonight, and just so you know, I'm not running against any of those people. So, and speaking of Judge Warner, he used to say to me and other lawyers many times before he turned 70, Ridley, get to the point. I don't want to turn 70 listening to this. So I'll try to hurry. But you have the Circuit Court Part 1 and Part 2. Those are interchangeable positions. They do the same thing. You just vote for those separately. Circuit Court's a court of original jurisdiction, meaning it can hear any case. It can hear criminal cases. It can hear divorces, personal injury cases. It can also hear chancery cases when the chancellor is tied up and has too many cases as his docket's overloaded now. You have a Chancery Court, which is a court of unliquidated damages. Basically means they hear contract disputes, property disputes, things of that nature. And then you have a Criminal Court, and I like to pick on them because my friends Wesley Bray and Gary McKenzie are great judges, but they pretty much just hear criminal cases. And I understand they always want the Circuit Court to help them out, but it doesn't really work both ways, so not too fair. Then you have, no offense to those running for General Sessions Court, but a little bit lower level court, which is General Sessions Court, which I like to call the warehouse of all courts. A lot of cases start there. You have cases under $25,000 in dispute. A lot of criminal cases start out there. They can also hear, in this county, probate and family. So they hear divorces as well. They hear termination of parental rights. Our General Sessions Court is one of the few courts in the state that can hear termination of parental rights cases. So hear DCS cases. It's just a huge volume of cases. So the General Sessions Court is an important court. And then you have one other one that you really don't have to worry about, which is your municipal courts, your municipal judge. They're not on the ballot, they're appointed. But that's the overview of the court system. My dad's a longtime politician. He always said, if you've got the crowd, be quiet before you lose their vote. So I'll end with that. Thank you very much.
Well, hopefully that helps a lot of you. I know I've been called personally, emailed, whatnot, trying to figure out the differences between the courts. Hopefully that was a crash course. You did great. A minute and a half, explained everything. It's good. All about that. So the next one we'll have come up is Chancellor Ron Thurman. And again, he's non-contested, but I think it'd be appropriate for him to come up and say hello and say whatever you want.
Well, my name's Ron Thurman, and I'm running my last race. You're not supposed to say that, but I am, because I'll be 70 at the end of this one, as your chancellor. Now, most folks don't know what a chancellor is. Well, you're looking at one. That's what a chancellor looks like. I ran in 2006 with Judge David Patterson, who's sitting over there. At that time, I was the youngest judge. Now I'm the oldest in the district. This district has 3 state-level judges that try all the civil cases as opposed to criminal. There's the 2 circuit judges in the criminal court, the Chancery Court, or the judge of the Chancery Court, which is a chancellor. Last year there was 2,800 filings. Chancery Court disposed of 2,000 of them. So we've been pretty busy. And it's not because I did such a great job, it's because the folks at that last table up there, Sue Tollett and her staff did it. They not only kept me in line, they kept Judge Warner in line, and you know how hard that was. But this is the first time in 3 times I've got to run a pose, and I can tell you, I can already feel it's better. This is the way to go. But I appreciate your support in the past, and I appreciate your complimentary vote this time. Thanks, and I think I'm under my time limit.
All right, so I don't see Craig. Is Craig Fickling here? I didn't see public defender. Okay, that's what I thought. So we'll give him an opportunity next month to speak. So because we've also got both Judge McKenzie and Judge Bray, our criminal court judges that were able to make it, they'll be here next month. We'll move into the contested race. And so I just want to kind of go over the ground rules for the contested race, because it's a little bit more than non-contested. Just want to let you know, all candidates were notified of the event and given breakdown of the forum format and questions in advance. All candidates have been encouraged to sponsor tables and bring their campaign paraphernalia with them to distribute to the audiences. Candidates will get a 2-minute intro each, followed by 2 questions that were prepared by the executive committee. And due to time, we moved from 1 question to 2 questions from the audience. These questions have been sent in via email, were reviewed, and will be read by me. And then we'll have a 2-minute closing argument that the candidates will have a chance to do. And what we'll do is we'll start first with Circuit Court Part 2, and then we'll move into general sessions. And at the end of this, if you guys will hang around, a lot of these candidates get an opportunity to speak. So we did ask them to stay around a little bit. So if questions didn't get answered that you'd want, or if you want to ask them personally, we ask that you stay around after that. So with that being said, can I ask both Judge Young and Carolyn Knight to come on up? All right. Feel free to sit or stand, whatever you want to do. What we'll do is we'll start first by last name alphabetical for the 2-minute opening.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, good evening. I am Caroline Knight. It's very exciting to see so many like-minded conservatives here this evening. I am a candidate for Circuit Court. I am running specifically for Part 2. As you have started to learn, Circuit Court is trial court. It's where disputes go to be resolved. The subject matter in Circuit Court is very broad. I'll confess to you all, I did not go to law school with the aim of becoming a judge. I had being a lawyer on my mind. But after acquiring over 15 years of broad legal experience, I feel compelled to run. I believe that the race for Part 2 is a moral imperative. I'd like to quickly introduce my family that could be here tonight and a special guest. My husband is Sean Stevens. He's seated toward the back there. Thank you. Sean has a couple local business interests and is actively involved as a real estate consultant. And I have with me tonight the world's best in-laws, Donna Stevens and Ken Stevens. Thank you all for being here. My father-in-law was an administrator at Cumberland Medical Center for about 30 years and currently has another business interest with a walk-in clinic here in town. And my mother-in-law started a promotions and ad business in Cookeville over 30 years ago and moved that to Crossville, and that business is still active today. So I'm very happy to have them and make their introduction tonight. We also have special guest, retired criminal court judge David Patterson with us this evening, and I want to say thanks to all of you. He's in the back and he's waiting. There he is. Thank you. And I wanted to say thanks to all of you for your support. I was licensed to practice law in 2006. It was at that time that I began representing clients all over the Upper Cumberland in cases ranging from contract disputes to divorce and child custody, adoption, and also estates. I hung out a shingle here in Crossville in 2008. I made my home here in Cumberland County, and as stated, Cumberland is one of 7 counties that the circuit court serves. For the last 11 years, I have been employed as an assistant district attorney, and for the last 6 of those, I have had a special assignment as child abuse prosecutor. So I have handled some of the worst subject matter imaginable, but it's been an honor to represent and to be an advocate for the most vulnerable in our community. Is that a 2-minute warning? Okay. I look forward to speaking with you more shortly. Thank you.
Just real quickly, anyone driving into court, license plate CHB 601. If you drive a court, onto a court, and it's somewhere over here by the maintenance shed, you need to move it, or it's going to be towed. Like now. The fellow that set this up for us, oh, is that you? Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir? I won't do it to you. You know who he is. All right. Sorry about that, Judge.
All right. Well, thank you all for welcoming me here tonight. I'm Judge Jonathan Young. Unfortunately, when you get elected judge, you lose your first name most of the time, and that's just the way it is. But I have been your elected circuit court judge since 2014. I'm honored that you all elected me back there. Like Bryant said, I'm the first Republican to hold this office there. I replaced a 30-year dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. To say that, I don't have an easy job. I think you heard about the opioid crisis that we have. We've had COVID. We've had all of these stuff. I'm not a politician. I'm not a politically correct person. If you want my opinion, I give it to you. If you want my decision, I give it to you. I believe that if you come before me as a litigant, that you have as much value as a litigant as the other person sitting across the table from you. No matter if they're IBM or an opioid manufacturer or a Ford Motor Company who has millions of dollars and thousands of attorneys on staff, you deserve equal justice under the law. That's what I ran on 8 years ago. That's what I continue to run on. I'm the only candidate in this entire room of everybody who stood up, except maybe Chancellor Thurman, that has 23 years civil experience. That's what I do. I do very little criminal cases. Occasionally I help the guys out when they have a conflict or something like that. But my job is totally civil. And it's funny, if you heard General McKenzie, you'll hear from him next week, he'll say, I don't know anything about civil law. And I said, well, I can help you out in criminal court. Why don't you do a couple of divorces for me? I've got a really nice child custody case once you hear that. So it matters who your judge is. It matters who has the experience to do the job. It matters who the person is who will make the tough decisions that most people don't like. I tell people, when both people leave mad at me, especially in a child custody case, I've probably done a really good job. So I want you to keep that in mind and do that. I'll be around for questions. Again, I think we've got other questions we're going to get asked, but thank you all, and again, thanks for having me. Thank you.
And just so you know, we did reach out to the Board of Judicial Conduct just to make sure that we kept these questions as kosher as possible. Judges obviously have to be careful what they say and how they say it. So with that being said, we'll go into our first question. Again, why are you running as a Republican candidate? Please explain what values of the Republican Party align with your personal values.
At the close of the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin was asked this question: what have you got, a republic or a monarchy? And what did Franklin say? A republic, if you can keep it. That was in 1787. A little later, I grew up in a rural farming community. My parents are beef cattle farmers, and I was raised with conservative values. Those values include deep respect for individual liberty, a belief in fiscal and personal responsibility. I also believe in personal accountability for right and wrong actions. These conservative values are who I am. Our nation was founded to protect God-given liberties: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are the principles that the Republican Party upholds, and today, more than ever, it is the Republican Party that is fighting to uphold these ideals. Individual liberty is inextricably tied to the rule of law. No one is above the rule of law. I would submit to each of you that conservative judges are critical to ensuring that the rule of law is upheld in our trial courts. Elected trial court judges should reflect your conservative values in word and in deed. As your next circuit court judge, I will uphold the rule of law. I will exercise judicial restraint and bring integrity to part 2. I believe that fair and unbiased decisions are based on the laws written and the facts presented, not on any personal agenda or motive. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that we're fighting together for the same values. I look forward to treating all parties in circuit court fairly and with respect.
Same question? Sure, more than happy to. Why are you running as a Republican candidate? Please explain what values of the Republican Party align with your personal values.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize to everyone. I've been working at my job, and I haven't had time to check my emails. I got about 6 different emails and different questions and all of that, so I don't have a prepared statement. I just want to throw that out there. But as a good lawyer, I'm used to playing off the cuff. I will be honest with you. I was raised by Democrats, FDR Democrats, as was probably most people who grew up here was raised by FDR Democrats 25, 30 years ago. In Putnam County, if you ran as a Republican in Putnam County, where I'm from, you ran as an independent. And everybody said, well, it's the sort of thing right now as you're running as a Democrat, you run as an independent. And they said, well, you're just not happy enough to call yourself a Democrat, so you run as an independent. Well, back then you would run as an independent because you wanted to be a Republican. However, having said that, many of FDR and JFK's values as a good Democrat back 30, 40, 50 years ago are now the same values that we tout as Republicans. We believe in family. We believe in God. We believe in guns. Now, having said that, that's the way I was born and raised. I was born and raised in Monterey, Tennessee. I'm not anything to say anything. My family is hard workers. My grandfather was an illiterate garageman who had to get out of the business when cars got to computer literate. I'm not fancy. I'm just telling you who I am. But I will tell you, it's not being a good Republican that's being a good judge, because I'm a trial judge. Trial judges have to listen to the evidence, weigh it, and decide who the law and the facts are for. If I have the biggest Democrat out there and the law and the facts are on their side, I have to decide for them. If I have the biggest Republican and law manufacturer on their side, I have to decide for them. I'm not a politician. I don't make laws. I interpret them and I give them out there. So to say I bring my conservative values to that, that's fine. I wish that children would grow up in the loving environment that I was. That's not the cases I see. I see the cases where the meth babies come in. And I say, and mom and dad are fighting over them. And I say, well, neither one of you get the children. Who else we got? So then we turn to grandma. Grandma's 70 years old. She's taking care of a 2-year-old. That's where we live in, folks. That's right here in the Upper Cumberland. These are not the traditional values that we grew up in. And unfortunately, these are not easy decisions. But I have to make them every day. Every day. So, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's who I am and that's what I stand for. Thank you all.
All right, next question is, please identify any formal complaints that have been filed against you with any supervisory authority, particularly the Board of Professional Responsibility or Board of Judicial Conduct, alleging any breach of ethics or unprofessional conduct. If so, explain.
It was Thomas Jefferson who said, "A well-informed electorate is a prerequisite to democracy." I would argue that nowhere is your well-informed vote more critical than in your local judicial races. Ethical judges in Tennessee must avoid even an appearance of impropriety or face sanction. I stand behind my record as an attorney representing clients in private practice and as a prosecutor. Prosecutors are held to higher ethical standards. Prosecutors have duties that exceed those of other attorneys. In 15 years of practice, I have never had a formal complaint alleging any breach of ethics or unprofessional conduct. With no complaints, I've had no sanctions. I've always acted in a professional manner. I strongly believe that ethical standards applicable to lawyers, prosecutors, and especially judges should be strictly adhered to. Ultimately, elected judges must face the scrutiny of you, the voting public. It is you, and only you, the voters, who are a check on abuses of power or misuse of office. If entrusted with your vote on May 3rd, I pledge to always uphold the highest ethical standard. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that question was directed at me because I'm the only one that's had an ethical complaint, but that's fine. But I want to talk about something that was in the newspaper just the other day. There was a report that came out and said Judge Young was acting unethical in an opioid case. What happened, the facts aren't there. Perhaps you all don't know, but everyone in here who's a citizen of Cumberland County is involved in a massive opioid case out there. And one of the opioid manufacturers, who will remain nameless, but it's public record, I don't want them to fuss at me again, sold 75% of their nationwide sales in the state of Tennessee. Think about that. 75% of all opioids they sold were sold in the state of Tennessee. They sold enough opioids in the counties that I have in this lawsuit to give every man, woman, and child in Cumberland County 324 opioids per week. Per week. Now, they said, Judge is mad because he doesn't like opioids. I'll be honest, I don't like opioids. However, what they left out was the judge granted a default against them because they failed to produce 50 million documents. 50 million, let that sink in. Okay? There's a picture of all the documents they failed to do. It's about this deep on a table about this size. the entire table. Now, these were things that were Tennessee state specific, like this opioid pill mill is going to shut down in 6 months. We need to get them to sell more opioids. We're out here telling them how to sell more opioids. We're out here to do this. We know that this person got busted with our opioids, but we don't care. Now, they say mean things about me. Does that bother me? I don't care. I don't care. I didn't grant them a default because they sold opioids. Last time I checked, it's still legal in Tennessee to sell opioids. I granted them a default because they couldn't follow the discovery rules. I grant defaults all the time against people who don't follow discovery rules. But this was the worst violation I'd ever seen. 50 million documents. So don't believe everything you read. Some of it's true, some of it's not. They issued a national press release that said, Judge Young's a moron. He didn't say the right things. So when the reporter called me up and said, they say you're a moron, you didn't follow these things. So what did I do? I went out and I told them specifically what my findings were. The transcript wasn't there, but they wrote it. So I just want you to know, judges get yelled at. We do that. We're all humans, we make mistakes. But I want you to know the truth that actually happened on that one. Thank you.
Now we're going to take questions that we did from the floor. First question that was asked is, do you believe the U.S. Constitution and its original amendments say what it means and means what it says? Or do you believe that the rights are up for modern interpretation of the whims of judges?
The short answer is yes. I believe the Constitution says what it means and means what it says. To further that explanation, I believe in an originalist interpretation of the Constitution. Thank you. Justice Scalia was an originalist. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia described our Constitution as enduring. Justice Scalia wrote, "The Constitution I interpret is not living but dead, or, as I prefer to call it, enduring. It means today not what current society, much less the court, thinks it to mean, but what was meant when it was adopted." In 2008, Justice Scalia and the Supreme Court decided a case called District of Columbia versus Heller. Heller was a landmark case for the Second Amendment. The issue before the court in Heller was whether handguns were, quote, arms, end quote, for Second Amendment purposes, and whether a 1975 handgun statute in Washington, D.C., which banned handguns in homes, was constitutional. Scalia wrote the majority opinion, and the Supreme Court held the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm, unconnected with service in a militia, and to use that firearm for traditional purposes, including self-defense within the home. Scalia, an originalist, wrote this majority opinion and concluded that the Second Amendment guarantees my right and yours to possess weapons in case of confrontation. Scalia believed that the Constitution was written to be understood by the voters, and so do I.
Well, I don't quite understand the text of this question, but I'll give it my best. I'm a lawyer. who is sworn to uphold the Constitution. I'm a judge that's sworn to uphold the Tennessee and the Constitution. Obviously that, again, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I think that the Founding Fathers said what they meant. My idea of gun control is using two hands. I don't understand it. But I will say, however, there are some times that the government overreaches. And I had one of those cases in a Wilderford case that came out of Livingston, where the legislature said that the judge shall do something. And I said, no, legislature, you could say we can consider something, you could say we might do something, but you can't say we shall do something. And what they were saying was, in this case, in a medical malpractice case, that the defense attorney who's representing the doctor could go to all of your doctors that you'd ever seen before and talk to every one of them without you being there or without your attorney being there. And I said, that doesn't really sound fair to me. And it went up and the Supreme Court's like, Judge Young, you're exactly right. They can't tell us, because we're still a separate branch of government, they can't tell us how to do. Now, what comes out now is the Wilderford fix that says they can still do that, but you have the right to have your attorney there. They can't ask any questions, but they can listen to make sure that what the other attorney said was true and accurate. And you have the right to transcribe it and take things for that. So, it's hard decisions that I make because 46 other trial judges in the state, there's only 130 something of us, said that was fine. Mean old Judge Young over here, he's the only one who said, I think we have a problem with that. And the Supreme Court says, you're right, I think we have a problem with that. These are the tough cases that I face. I don't know that we're ever going to see an abortion case in the Circuit Court of Putnam County or Cumberland County or Clay County or anything like that. I don't think that's ever going to come up, and I can't vote on that because I'm a trial judge. So what I have to do is apply what the Constitution says to the facts. And I don't know that anybody who is a Republican would do anything differently. So, thank you.
Next question from the public was, do you believe a judge should have broad discretion in the interpretation of the law when ruling on a case? If not, please state why. If yes, when and how would you apply this discretion?
Judges should not legislate from the bench. A judge's role is not to make the law, but to apply the law as written to the facts presented. Judges must uphold the rule of law, period. Another Supreme Court Justice, Justice Frankfurter, wrote, I am not justified in writing my private notions of policy into the Constitution, no matter how deeply I cherish them. With regard to the particular question asked, I believe that rather than discretion, judges should exercise restraint. The law should apply equally to all. The sanctity of the rule of law depends on conservative judges. The law also should apply equally to judges. The robe is not an excuse to comment and potentially jeopardize pending cases. The judicial robe should not be used as a tool for furthering personal agendas. The judicial robe should not be a weapon used to disadvantage parties before the court. And finally, the judicial robe should not be a shield or cover for an abuse of authority or misuse of the office. I humbly ask for your vote on May 3rd. I hope that if you have questions about my ideals, that you'll stick around and speak with me following tonight's forum. I have a website, and you can also follow the campaign on social media. I look forward to meeting the new faces in the room when the forum concludes. Thank you very much.
Well, to give you a lawyer answer, it depends on the case. Sometimes judges have broad discretion and sometimes we don't. My good friend Will Ridley was arguing a case against me, or in front of me Monday, and I really liked what he was saying, and I wished I could give him what he was asking for. Unfortunately, the law wouldn't let me do that. All I could do is remand it down and they get a start, which disadvantaged his client because they were going up against the county of Livingston, who has lots of money and his clients don't. Unfortunately, my hands were tied on that. Now, in some cases, we need broad discretion. Like I said, opioid kids, meth kids. We have to have broad discretion because there's not a cookie cutter that fits every situation. Sometimes you have one good parent, sometimes you have no good parents. Sometimes, unfortunately, you have two good parents. I can't screw that up. You know, that's the thing. It changes. So, with experience, you sort of learn these things. 23 years of doing this job, I can look at people and I can say, you know, that's probably not the best way to be doing that. Now, I can't tell them to change their ways. I can send them to rehab. I can tell them to do this. I can say, you know, don't do that. But sometimes the court needs discretion to do these things because a cookie cutter approach won't do. Now, there's some things that I have to follow the law. Like in that opioid case, it says, you shall give them 50 million documents. They didn't. What's the punishment for that? You don't get to play ball anymore. That's what the punishment is. That's what it should be. That's what the law says. But now, let's say that a father comes in and he's 15 minutes late dropping the child off one time. How can I punish that? The only way to punish that is give him 10 days in jail for dropping the child off one time 15 minutes late. Does that fit that? No, that doesn't fit that crime. Now, if he drops the child off 15 minutes late, every time he drops the child off, maybe some jail time will get his attention. So, you know, it's not just the law. We have to follow the law, but you also have to use common sense at this job. Common sense goes a long, long way. And the only way you get common sense is to do this job for as long as I've been doing it. You know, it's sort of the same thing in criminal law. If we have a guy who steals from Walmart because he's hungry and he steals a loaf of bread, should he be treated differently than somebody who steals $10 million from a bank? I think the answer is yes. So that's my answer on that. And again, thank you all.
Give each candidate 10 minutes. Whoa, no. 2 minutes to close each, and then we'll someone will grab me a coffee, and then we will start the next round. So that being said,
Thank you. Well, in closing, again, I am Caroline Knight. I am asking for your vote for Circuit Court in Part 2. I want you to have confidence when you cast your vote. In over 15 years, I've acquired a balanced legal experience. I've always stood for the rule of law, and I fought for Upper Cumberland residents in complex cases, both civil and criminal. Examples of those would include workers' compensations, appeals of terminations of parental rights, contract and property disputes, high asset divorces with children, aggravated robbery, felony murder, and first-degree murder. I think it's important to mention those to you because these are complex cases that require testimony of expert witnesses from forensics and biological experts to crash scene reconstructionists. These cases train you to think like a judge. These cases require analysis of the facts and application of the law, assessment of whether constitutional laws are implicated. Can the expert be qualified? Is the testimony relevant? Do these facts fit within the rules of procedure and the rules of evidence? These cases require you to think like a judge because you anticipate objections in order to be successful in advocating for your client. As Circuit Court Judge, I can pledge to be fair and unbiased. I hope that you'll join me in the fight to restore integrity to Part 2. Thank you for your time tonight.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for having me up here. We got a huge room tonight. I remember when we did this 8 years ago. I think there was like 15 tables or something like that. So now to see you all out there and to see so many new faces, one of the things that we see is we see so many people who've moved into this area, and I want to welcome you all to the Upper Cumberland. The Upper Cumberland's always been my home, and now it's your home, so I think that you are my neighbors, and I try to help you as much as I can. One thing I will say, though, is if you're moving to the Upper Cumberland, we wish you would negotiate your housing prices a little more. If we're asking $400,000 for the house, we'll take $375,000. You don't have to pay us $600,000. So we do appreciate that. But I want to get to know everybody in this room. I want to get to know all of you. I appreciate everybody who's honked the horn when I've been out putting up signs, or I've been out passing out cards, or walking around doing that. I want to thank everybody who's answered the telephone when I've called you all to ask me questions and to do that. I want to thank you all for all the prayers that you've given me, because like I said, it's not an easy job sometimes, and I do appreciate that. I think that I have served you to the best of my ability. I've tried to, each and every time that I take a case, it's not just another case to me, it's your case, and I take it very seriously and try to put extra effort. I read every document that is filed before I take the bench. Why? Because I don't want you paying a lawyer $400 to watch me read. I want to be knowledgeable when I get up there to do that. And no offense to my opponent, but being a lawyer is totally different than being a judge, because when I was a lawyer, I wanted to fight for you to win. And now, being a judge, I have to be fair to everybody. And it is a totally different mindset when you take the bench to do that. I've been doing that for almost 8 years. I hope that you find it in your heart to vote for me for another 8 years. We've come this far, and I think we've got a lot more years left in the tank. And I humbly ask for your vote and support, and thank you all so much.
All right, that concludes our section on Circuit Court Part 2. Thank you both for coming. We're going to move on to, feel free to stretch your legs for a minute or two before we move into general sessions. I'm serious, Everett. I'd like a cup of coffee. Yeah, we'll start back here in about 5-10 minutes or so.
For your conservative Republican candidate for General Sessions Judge, Ivy Mayberry. Ivy could not be in attendance, as he said earlier, because her oldest son is playing state basketball tournament game as we speak with Stone Memorial High School. Ivy is dedicated to her family and children, but does send her sincerest apologies for not being present tonight. Ivy also wants to thank the Republican Party for hosting this event and everyone in attendance to become a well-informed voter. So let me take a few minutes to tell you about my friend Ivy. Ivy is married to Nick Mayberry, and they have 3 children, Preston, Knox, and Sophie. She is a lifelong resident of Cumberland County and the daughter of Butch and Joan Tyler Gardner, and they are members of the Lion Area Church of Christ. Ivy is the only candidate with real judicial, legal, and community experience. Ivy is currently in her 7th year as General City Judge and Administrative Hearing Officer, and has sat as special judge in the General Sessions Court on multiple occasions since becoming licensed to practice law. This judicial position allows Mayberry the experience and knowledge of courtroom operations, handling a court docket, and interacting with the public within the judicial system. Ivy has owned and operated her own law practice since 2013. Through this operation, she has been involved in every type of case the General Sessions Court has jurisdiction over. She also practiced frequently in the Tennessee Court of Appeals and in the United States Federal Court. The wide range of cases has allowed Mayberry the opportunity to learn and discover the many facets of the judicial system and how to make the system better for all involved. Give me just a minute to turn the page. Ivy's community service work over the past 2 decades speaks for itself and proves her track record of actively bettering this community. Mayberry is a founding member of Organized Love and the local Young Professionals Alliance. She's a strong advocate for our emergency service workers and co-organizes the annual Back the Blue local event. Ivy has been instrumental to other local charitable organizations as a previous board member, including Good Samaritans, CSW Foundation, and Kids on the Rise. Ivy is not just another politician showing up during a political cycle, but has a proven history of showing up and making a difference in the community she loves and calls home. Ivy's main focus as General Sessions Judge will be early intervention and implementing a family treatment court starting day 1. The key to a successful General Sessions Court is early intervention. Ivy promises to evaluate cases before the court, assesses the circumstances surrounding the case, and develop a roadmap for successful conclusions for all parties. Drug abuse, child abuse, domestic abuse, and misdemeanor crimes all go hand in hand. By intervening from the beginning of one's judicial system involvement, Mayberry can control the revolving door and make Cumberland County an even better place to live. Mayberry plans to implement a family treatment court immediately upon taking the bench. Family treatment court will be a place for qualifying individuals to receive the treatment and services they need with some judicial oversight and accountability. Family treatment court will allow those charged with misdemeanor crimes suffering from drug addiction to get the treatment necessary to overcome the addiction while meeting the requirements of their probation or diversion sentence. Family treatment court will allow those who suffer from domestic abuse or those that are engaged in domestic abuse to receive the appropriate counseling in order to break the cycle. And we're getting close, I think, on the end. What I would like to say further is that we would like for you tonight to consider Ivy Mayberry as your next General Sessions Judge. Thank you.
All right. Just remind you of the format. Each candidate will get
a quarter of a can.
2 minutes intro, followed by 2 questions. We'll have 2 minutes to answer each question that has been prepared by the executive committee, followed by 2 questions from the audience. And again, they'll have 2 minutes to respond to each of those questions, as well as a 2-minute close. And so with that being said, we will hand off based off of alphabetical order. And we'll go in with the 2-minute intro.
Thank everyone for being here tonight. Thank you for the Republican Party to put on this event. My name is Nathan Klaus, and I'm your candidate for General Sessions Judge. I have a wonderful wife, Barbie. We've been married 22 years. She's standing up back there in the back. We are blessed with 3 great children, Tyler, Krisha, and Delana, ages 8, 10, and 11. Yes, we were glutton for punishment, but we did it. But I want to tell you something, because I don't want to miss an opportunity to pass on a testimony. You see, my first career wasn't an attorney. I did accounting and banking. But during the early part of our marriage, we had the unfortunate, as a lot of people do, having miscarriages and not being able to have children. Well, you see, in 2010, God put a burden on our heart to become foster parents. it was through the foster system that I changed my career. I was seeing firsthand and with those kids in my home what they were struggling with and what they were going through. I had to listen to them cry about their moms and dads. And I told my wife, because after the first child, I told my wife, I can't do enough like this. I'm going to go to law school. And that's what I did. And we're blessed to do 5 foster children total. We adopted, thank you. We got to adopt our oldest daughter, Delana. We got her, she was a week old. But let me tell you how God works. When she came into my home, we had another miscarriage. I know that sounds tragic. However, for the first time in 11 years, the doctors discovered why we were having miscarriages. And a 2-hour surgery fixed that, and we had our first biological child on the birthday of the child we adopted. That's God, folks. Then He blessed me with a son. But not only did He change my family, He changed my career. And this judgeship is about family. It's about those children. And it's the next step I think He wants me to take, because I'm here to protect those children from anything that's happening to them. And that's what you need on this bench. Thank you.
Amen.
Good evening. My name's Amanda Worley. Thank you all that are sticking around for this. I know it's been a long night. I want to start by saying I am currently an assistant district attorney. I have been a licensed practicing attorney going on 15 years now, and my career has been with the DA's office. Before I get too far, I don't want to forget, and I've got some family members here tonight, my mother, where's she at, Minnie Shadden, my father and stepmother, Dawn and Martha Hunter, my husband, whereas Travis is, oh, there he is, they're all spread out, and our daughter, Sophia. She has been a trooper to all these things to come with us. My family is very important to me. That is why I've done the job as an assistant district attorney for as long as I have. That's why I want to be your next General Sessions Court judge. I have worked to keep Cumberland County safe. I have fought to keep Cumberland County safe. I have tried cases ranging from DUIs to first-degree murders and everything in between. And what does that do? That gives me the knowledge and the skills necessary to make the hard decisions. And those are decisions that I make every day, not just at trial, but as my job as an assistant DA. Those are the decisions that I make on whether or not a case has enough evidence to be brought to a grand jury, whether we have enough to go to a trial. Those are decisions where I have to sit with a victim and a family and tell them, we may not be able to get the outcome we want here. I have stood in the trenches for almost 15 years fighting to keep this county safe. I have had mothers who have lost their children crying on my shoulders. I have held the hands of children as they've had to relay the absolute worst day of their little lives in trial. I know how to make those decisions. I know what Cumberland County needs as their General Sessions judge to keep this county safe. And I would appreciate your vote on May 3rd for your next General Sessions judge. Thank you.
All right. While you're running, what are we doing here? Sorry, that threw me off. First question. Why are you running as a Republican candidate? Please explain what values of the Republican Party align with your personal values.
I'm running a Republican ticket because I am a Republican. I'm conservative by nature. I am, as far as your values go, folks, I'm a member of Central Baptist Church where I get the privilege to serve as a deacon. But you've heard here a lot tonight, you've missed tonight, about the core values of the party. But one thing I want to tell you is, as a judge, our rules say we cannot go in depth about stuff that may come before our court. So I can't talk to you about certain specific values because they may come and it may get me disqualified. It could lead to sanctions. But here's what I will tell you. The one thing I'm tired of in our country right now are judges putting their personal opinions into laws and not following the laws as they're written in the Constitution. I'm tired of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to restore faith back. I want people to know that when they come in that courtroom, I'm going to follow those laws. You need to have that faith when you come in there. When you sit down in front of me and you're on either side, I don't care who you are, I don't care who your family are, I don't care where you came from, you're in there because something has happened. And each of you have an argument you need to hear. I'm going to take those arguments and apply the law, not my opinion, the law. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring your faith back to this bench. I think that's a very important feature that you as a party uphold. I know you're tired of it too. It's time to put a stop to it. Thank you.
So why am I running as a Republican candidate? Well, that's an important question to be asking all of the candidates that are wanting to put an R beside their name. Because when you go and in May, you select who is going to be facing off against an independent, or in various cases, the Democrat challenger, you need to know about that candidate. Now, I'm a Republican. I have been a lifelong Republican. Going way back to when I was in high school, I was your Republican Women's Club scholarship winner. And I have stayed, these ladies work hard for that money. I have stayed an active participant in the Republican Party ever since then. I have been your secretary of your Republican Women's Club, and up until I ran for office, or running for the General Sessions Judge office, I was the chairman of the Cumberland County Republican Party. Now, you know, in preparation for tonight, I looked again at the platform for the Republican Party. You know, what does that mean to me? What aligns with my values? And there's a few things. The exceptionalism of America. I believe in that. The Republican Party believes in that. We believe in limited government. We believe in separation of powers. We believe in federalism. We believe the Constitution is not a living document that changes with the whim of the electorate. But most importantly, one of the things that really struck home with me and what values align with mine is that the Republican Party believes in the laws of the land. They believe in the pursuit of justice. It says on the platform, and I believe this with everything in me, I'm a Republican and I believe in law and order. Thank you.
All right, second question. Just like we did the last group, please identify any formal complaints that have been filed against you with any supervisory authority, particularly the Board of Professional Responsibility or Board of Judicial Conduct, alleging any breach of ethics or unprofessional conduct. If so, please explain.
This will be a fairly short answer. The Rules of Ethics Act can say this. I've had 2 complaints and both were dismissed. I cannot get any deeper than that. It's against confidential rules. I can't go any deeper than that. I've had 2 that have been dismissed. So what I'm going to do the rest of my time is tell you I'm going to make a change to this judge. You see, we'd have some stuff that's been happening in our court systems for like the last 10, 11 years, especially in custody cases and divorces, where if you were a man, you're going through a divorce or a custody case, there is a standing order that you got 80 days a year with your child, every other weekend. That's not what our law says. I'm taking that out. Our children depend on both parents. Now, is it always going to be the same? No. But you remove the dad, you're going to hurt that child too. I want to put it back in. We follow our statute that says you maximize at the beginning and you adjust it per the criteria. I want to make that change. I want to bring our children back to safety in their homes, where they have both parents making a difference in their lives. And it's time we start letting dads and moms raise their kids. They may not be together, but they need to co-parent, and that kid doesn't need to pay the price because somebody says, Dad or Mom, you only get here for the weekend. Another change I want to make is in our juvenile court. Our juveniles are addicted to drugs and pornography right now. I have multiple cases of 11-year-olds addicted to pornography. We need to start a juvenile mental health court. We need to get those kids treatment. They don't understand what they're looking at. All they're doing is going online, clicking on a website that they're 18, and they're being subjected to stuff they can't handle. You know who's dealing with that? The court system is right now, because they're acting out. We need to get them help. It's time for the courts to start doing some stuff to change their paths, to get them off of the path they're on and put our families back first and reunite those families with healthy children in mind and body. Let's get them back on the right path to become productive citizens. And I want to do that. Thank you.
You know, as was stated earlier, General Knight, when she was talking, prosecutors are held to different ethical standards, higher ethical standards, additional rules than other attorneys and defense attorneys. And so I think it's important, and I think this is an important question to be asking judicial candidates. Now, as Mr. Klaus answered quickly, I can too. In nearly 15 years of practice being a prosecutor, I have had 0 ethical complaints made to the board. RJ, I answered the question asked.
Again, folks, I try to mentally prepare, knowing that I was told not to tell any lawyer jokes either, so. Anyways, with that being said, we'll move on to our next question here. This one is the first one from the public. And again, these are from public, so just bear in mind, these are questions that were submitted, and we did our best to try to find questions that we thought that potential judge candidates could answer. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. Do you believe the U.S. Constitution and its original amendments say what it means and mean what it says? Or do you believe that the rights are up for modern interpretation of the whims of judges?
I'm an original constitutionalist. I do believe it's written the way it is. It means what it says and says what it means. We don't need to change that. You heard Ms. Caroline Knight say earlier, she was quoting Supreme Court cases. Those are federal courts. They interpret the U.S. Constitution. Okay? That's not part of what we do as a General Sessions judge. But I'm here tonight to educate you on the General Sessions judge also. So yes, I believe in the Constitution. The General Sessions judge, as you heard Mr. Ridley say earlier, we have a lot of duties. First and foremost, we protect your families. Your juvenile cases, your DCS cases, those come to this court. Divorces, child custody, guardianships for children that have lost their parents, conservatorships for adults who become disabled. We do probate cases. We do civil cases under $25,000. And yes, we do criminal misdemeanors. You may hear about thousands of cases that come before General Sessions. They start there and they move on. Can't do anything with your felonies. Your murderers, rapists, we can't do anything with, we can't punish them. The primary focus of this judge is on the family. 70% of the judge's time, 3.5 days a week, deals with your families directly in some shape, form, or fashion. Everybody here knows a grandparent raises their grandchildren. They know somebody who's having to do a probate of the will. They know what's going on there. That's what this judge covers. Even though we believe in the Constitution, I believe in it strongly, I don't get to interpret it or change it. That's federal court. It's a good question if you're a federal court judge, but it applies here as well. But it's important for you to know as voters what this judge does and how we're qualified for all those courts. They have different rules, different procedures, different rules of evidence, and it's important to find out who's qualified for all of them. Thank you.
I also have a judicial philosophy that is an originalist, as in the line of Justice Scalia, most recently Justice Amy Barrett, I'm saying it wrong there. And so that means, you know, the Constitution means what it says what it means. It's not up for us to change that. That's why you have legislators. That's why you have Speaker Sexton and Senator Bailey. They change the law. If you don't like what the law is, if you don't like what the Constitution says, there's a process to change that. But it's not my job as a judge to do that. It is to interpret the law. Now, we deal with not only the U.S. constitutional law in searches and seizures and things of that nature, but the Tennessee Constitution. That's the same question. The same question goes for both. How do you view these most sacred documents in our society? Are they up for change? Does the Tennessee Constitution get to change just because we're using that? No. I believe that an originalist opinion, or an originalist judicial opinion, is what we need. We're not there to make the law, we interpret it. Now, there have been some statistics, and I want to take just a minute to talk about some of that. And you have some numbers that have been given to you. Now, I'm not asking you to stand up here and believe me. Amanda said this, so it's true. But I would challenge you to go talk to your circuit court clerk, Jessica Burgess, go talk to your clerk and master, Sue Tollett, and get the actual true numbers of what cases, what types of cases, and how many are coming through your general sessions court. Because when you do that, I believe you will agree with me that over 77% of the cases that come through our general sessions court are criminal in nature. It is not a pass-through court. That is absolutely not the case.
All right. Next question. Do you believe a judge should have broad discretion in interpretation of law, which I know kind of is what they talked about a little bit right now, when ruling on a case? If not, please state why. If yes, when and how would you apply this discretion?
The answer to that question is yes and no. There are certain parts of our law that we don't get to change. We have no discretion over. Some of the penalties you face are a certain amount of time in jail if you commit a misdemeanor for some possession of meth. Certain different types of, in family law, you have certain things you have to do. So yes, there are parts of the law that we cannot change. We cannot go away from. However, there is discretion built into the laws. If I'm doing a termination of parental rights case, I'm deciding the fate of a mom and dad with their child. Having been in those cases, defended those cases, and did the plaintiff part of those cases, the judge has to have some discretion on those facts and apply them to the laws there. So yes, there is discretion built in. You have to, because you've got to take facts and apply. So the judge has some discretion. Broad, what is broad? Is it little? Is it a whole lot? That can depend on what you're doing. But yes, the answer to that is both yes and no. You do have discretion in some, but not all. But I will tell you this, the one thing the General Sessions Judge does not have discretion in, and I'll repeat this again, out of 76% of criminal cases that come in, ask how many, what percentage goes to criminal court because they're felonies. I think that's an important statistic. Again, we can't do anything with those people. Don't be fooled by a number. Look at what actually happens. Your criminal court judges will be here next week, those are the ones that do felonies. Don't be fooled by that. Don't be fooled by a percentage because it's misleading. Your families take up this court's time. That's what's important. Thank you.
So I believe the question was whether there was judicial discretion in the interpretation of a law. Now, my answer to that is no. Laws say what they mean and mean what they say. And you look at the plain meaning of that law to determine how you're going to rule. You don't need a judge up on the bench doing legal gymnastics to try to make the ruling into what they want it to be. That's not what you want on the bench. You want someone who looks at the rules, who looks at the statute, who looks at the Constitution, and then who looks at the evidence that's presented to them, and they make a fair and impartial determination. That's what you need on the General Sessions bench.
All right, we'll move into 2 minutes closing, and here we go.
I want to close with an analogy. You're having to have an emergency surgery that's life-threatening. Before you are 2 people, one who does those surgeries on a regular basis and one who studied at school 16 years ago but has never done one. Who wants to do your surgery? If you're going through a divorce, do you want someone who's done those or someone who may have read about it at one point in time? If you're looking at dealing with the DCS case and a child going through that, do you want someone who's been on both sides of that, felt what they go through, been there with them, helped those parents, or someone who passed by as they were going to another court? Do you want someone to terminate or make a decision on termination of parental rights? One of the most sacred rights we have is the right to our children. But you're going to have a judge up there who's going to make that determination. Do you want one that's done it, or one that actually never read about it in school, but it's going to be the first time? Folks, this is important. You can't just say, I read about this once, now I want to do it. Ain't the way this works. This is too important for your families just to sit there and say, hey, I've done one thing, that's all I've ever done. It's a good thing, the prosecution's great, but that doesn't prepare you for what this judge does. If you're doing criminal court, by all means, great. That is not what prepares you for a general sessions judge. What prepares you for that is being with all those courts, having practiced in all those courts, having been on multiple sides of those cases. Tough decision, explain to a child why they can't go home because their parents are doing drugs. Explain to a parent, if you don't straighten up, you might not get to see your kid this month. That's a tough conversation. Be that parent that brought them in your home and hugged them and held them and had to explain to them, try to explain what's happening. Folks, this is too important to look and disregard 70% of the judge's time. It's too important. Do not put your families last. Put someone in there who has done these things, who understands civil procedure, completely different from criminal, who understands rules of evidence for civil, completely different from criminal. Thank you. My name is Nathan Klaus. I appreciate your vote support.
So let's take a minute and talk. I have been practicing law for going on 15 years now. Yes, that has been as a prosecutor, and I will not stand up here and apologize for that. I am proud of my service to this community and this state. It is something that I chose to do, even though I could have went into private practice many times over. But it's important to have someone in the position of an assistant district attorney that is competent and experienced and knows the rules. I have more experience as an attorney than both of my opponents combined for the same 14 years, if you add them both up. Now, talk about experience. I am the only candidate that can stand on this stage and say I have had a criminal jury trial. Are we having criminal jury trials in Sessions Court? No, we're not. No, we're not. But that experience absolutely prepares you to be a judge. If you don't believe me, Judge David Patterson's sitting over there. Go ask him after court, or after we're done here. I'm used to saying court judge, sorry. You know, I take pride in what I do, and I believe I do a good job. And I work hard, and I will work hard as your General Sessions Court. And you, as the electorate, need to have a good understanding of what this court does, and the facts are not that this is some pass-through court that has nothing to do with criminal law, that it is this minute amount is the only thing that comes into the criminal law. That is not correct. Ask your judges, ask your clerks, and they will tell you. Your General Sessions Court deals with some terrible things. Now, are all of these types of cases important? Absolutely. Is it important to know divorces? Yes. Is it important to know all these others? Yes. But when you go home tonight and you close your eyes, are you wondering about how a divorce is going in Cumberland County? Or are you wondering if you've locked the door and is somebody going to break into your home? Or are you getting a call that one of your loved ones is overdosed on an illegal narcotic? That's what's important to this community.
All right. Where we at? Are we done yet? I think so. that being said, thank you all. They're gonna hang around. Appreciate the candidates coming up here, both the ones earlier and now. Before you leave, just so you know, we have some sample ballots printed for the May primary, so you can kind of get a good lay of the land of who's running. We got so many judges here.
I'm just crowd scanning right now for B-roll.